Right, let's bring up our founders. Please join me on stage. Oh, you left your phone. Shall I answer it for you? If it rings. Great. Have a seat, gentlemen. Round of applause for them. Right, so we've got about 33 minutes. I definitely want to come to you in the audience, so get your questions ready for these guys. But first, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. We'll start here. Ashish?
My name is Ashish. Jhina, I'm co-founder of Jumbotail. We're India's leading food and grocery wholesale and new retail platform. We're building for the future of India's food consumption. Lots of brands going to get built. We believe they will go to consumers through the Kirana ecosystem that we power. We have over 200,000 Kiranas all across India at this point. We run an e-commerce marketplace, we do logistics, we solve for fintech, and we also empower Kiranas to actually transform themselves into modern convenience omni-channel grocery stores, which is what we believe the vast majority of Kirana stores in India and actually large parts of the developing world will look like in the next decade.
Interesting. All right. Mohit, you're wearing your product today.
Yeah, so my name is Mohit. I represent a company called Ultrahuman. We make biowearable devices. Biowearable devices, we believe, are the future of health and everything about fitness. The one I'm wearing on finger essentially tells me more about my body, how my metabolism is essentially shaping my performance and my cognitive thinking and my recovery and my sleep. And I have another one on my arm. So essentially, we make these biowearable devices that can tell you more about how you can actually improve your life, improve your health, and of course, improve productivity and of course, be better humans in the end.
Fantastic. Sreeram.
Thank you. Guys, we're working in this very interesting space of creator economy. So we are a MarTech platform. And so we strongly believe that anybody who has any influence, whatever social media channel or wherever it may be, should be able to monetize that. And we're building a platform that enables them to unlock that value.
Fantastic. Dr. Naveen, you've been answering a lot of questions lately about the crypto world. Might get one or two into you today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Naveen. So I was a professional athlete. I represented India, and I was in Swiss Olympics team. And there's a transition now. I'm a CEO and co-founder of a decentralized tech team, so fully in blockchain and a part in crypto too.
Fantastic. And Nick?
Hi there. So great to see so many of you after last night's events made it through. My name's Nick Horowitz. I'm co-founder of Founders Makers. We're a creative partner to some of today's most exciting scale-ups, challenger brands and major brands. And we work with them to both what we call scale creatively, as well as challenge kind of the incumbents out there in their industries so that they can continue to grow and scale.
Great. All right. Well, let's get a few of you to answer Shailendra's challenge. He says it's a fantastic time to be building a business. What do you say?
So I couldn't agree more than that.
Okay.
So this is my fourth rodeo. And so I was part of the founding team of a company where we didn't raise any money. And we actually listed that company on the London Stock Exchange for $4.6 billion. Then I started two other companies where I never raised any money or debt and successfully exited both those companies.
Was that in a different economic time than currently?
So this was the period from 2002 to 2022. So it's about the last
quite
two
a few
decades.
times.
So we've seen quite a lot of cycles, ups and downs. And I strongly believe that these are the times when they say tough times create strong men, and strong men create great companies. And so I think this is a brilliant time for people to really understand that in the absence of capital, you have to really understand that there are weapons which are much more stronger than that, and you will need to really understand how to unlock value other than just using capital.
Interesting. Okay. Naveen, what about you? Blockchain, the right time to be doing it?
Well, in the market, I think is the worst time since the start of the blockchain and the crypto movement. But I think at the moment, it's a very right time to build. We should focus on the building. And the projects which will now raise funds with good strategic funds or good VCs or good strategic partners, I think they're going to do very, very well.
And your personal experience at the moment, how is it? You answering mostly questions about FTX?
No, I'm in no capacity to answer those questions. But my personal experience is There are some very good VCs. So these turbulent times, at least in the blockchain market or in decentralized tech space, have kind of filtered out all the, I would say, not real projects and not real VCs. Because in crypto market, there is a lot of, sorry for my language, a lot of bullshit around. So this time, there are real guys or real VCs which are around, and the real guys who are building something. So I think it's a testing times and a very good times for a good project to raise.
Okay. Nick, what about you? Now, you're operating in the UK. It feels like winter there at the moment, and it really feels, when you read the papers, like we are in a serious economic winter. What's your experience? Are you also seeing, actually, does it feel quite positive? Less attrition, less churn, or is it a little bit tougher in the UK?
Yeah, we've definitely had some quite large landscape changes over the past few years, be that from obviously Brexit, the pandemics, Liz Truss, you name it, we've had it all. And I think, it's a challenging time for people in the UK, but I also think they relish the challenge as well. And whilst they're not kind of celebrating where we're at, there's definitely a sense that we're at an inflection point and that there are opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And like what? For you, what are the opportunities do you see?
I think, so I'll just bring up an example of what we've done. So in our world, purpose has been a big buzzword for a couple of years, and everyone's been trying to have a purpose because it gives them that competitive edge, in the marketplace. And not everyone talks the talk and kind of puts that into practice, and we've seen that a lot with companies that want to be involved in the climate change space. So they want to be involved in climate change, but then themselves are not actually becoming net zero. They're not going towards it. They've got a plan, but they're maybe not delivering on it, or maybe not talking about it. So, we saw that as an opportunity to help them. And so along with Anuka, who's in the audience somewhere, who set up a company called Zeroism, we partnered with them to kind of set up this one-stop shop for helping companies create policy, deliver on it, and then talk about it, to allow them, to have actually that purpose at the heart of them and deliver on net zero and not be accused of greenwashing. So that was just a good example of kind of, I think the most important thing for me at this time is taking a step back and reflecting on your business and kind of reassessing it all from your priorities to your team, to your product, and then once you've done that and you've seen where kind of you truly are getting value, also not being afraid then to kind of take risks and to try new things at this time as well, and not being afraid to be uncomfortable in doing that.
Interesting. Now, Ashish, I wonder in the grocery delivery market if every day isn't actually quite a turbulent day. As somebody who uses a lot of online grocery services, and more than one, and sometimes things don't always go as well as planned. Talk me through it.
I was going to say, every day is a turbulent day. We actually deliver to mom and pop retailers in India. So they're, as much as consumers are exacting customers, when it comes to delivering to somebody whose store and livelihood, and they're paying their children's fees, their rents based on these businesses, the expectation is actually even higher.
Interesting.
And I think we realized very early on that, because this is a very, very large market, $500–600 billion projected to go to $1 trillion, it's going to attract a lot of people with a lot of capital. And so capital was never, the mechanism by which we believed we could build sustainable advantage. I don't think it is a mechanism by which most industries can build sustainable advantage. And therefore, we chose to actually optimize on service levels, convenience, reliability, trust. Those don't cost a lot of money, actually. And so we've built, at this point, the largest platform in the country in India doing this, with maybe a 10th or a 20th of the capital of other people. And I like to look at it as, these are opportunities to actually build businesses that are sort of climate-proof in that sense, because you're focusing on the customer, you're focusing on what your retailers or your consumers really value. And that is actually, something that, transcends these seasons. And, if you build something that's extremely frugal and scrappy, these times are great times to be building businesses.
Interesting. Mohit, talk us through the wearables market at the moment. You work mostly with elite athletes, is that right? Or somebody like me who's a keen exerciser, but I'm not going to be an elite athlete anytime soon, sadly.
Well, all of us are elite athletes in our own way. We look at, when we think about our lives, we want to perform in one aspect or the other, right? So that is the aspect of the life that we want to optimize. Like for some people, it's cognitive performance. For some people, it's physical performance. And I think where all of this comes together is the fact that your health data for elite athletes or for everyone else has a lot to tell you. And obviously, the data for elite athletes is much more sensitive and they can use it differently. But for everyone else, I think this is very, very different as well.
And at the moment, are you finding that your customers still have the disposable income to purchase your devices, or are you finding the market tough?
I think health is a problem that progressively becomes a harder thing for somebody to solve for. Like literally our LTV is the lifetime value of a user, right? So, like if you think about it, say people have to live enough number of years to pay us back the CAC. But essentially what you're talking about here is that health has become a more of a complex problem for everyone else, for the industry, for individuals to manage over the years, given that there's so much happening around and it's much harder to manage health. The demand has increased. What's become harder is the people who are building for the demand. Obviously, what do you do if you have no money? That's the framework that you have to start with.
All right. I want to come to Shailendra. So can we get the microphone? Have you got the microphone? It's just being rushed to you just now. And then can I see if anyone else in the audience has a question? All right, so there's one back there. So Shailendra first. He's just here.
Maybe I'm still mic'd up.
I don't, oh. Can we turn on Shailendra's mic? Here, he's got a microphone here.
All right.
And then we've got one there and then a question here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. How are the teams doing? Are you seeing, how's the culture inside the org? Are you guys liking this time from an internal building perspective? I think one thing that's a little bit underappreciated, in my opinion, is what transformation companies go through from the inside. Because when you're not focused on so much stuff outside and financing and growth and so on, and I think it'd be really nice for you to double-click, some of you to double-click on that, on what goes inside the building.
Okay, what's going on inside the building? Who wants to speak about that? Yeah, go ahead.
So, very good question, Shailendra. Very good comment. I would say we started doing the introspection, that means looking into the team, and we changed a lot of structure in the team, and we got some new guys, and we just kind of get rid of the guys who were not so motivated. And when the turbulent times are there, you even see the conviction and motivation of the team inside, and you see who's there for long term and who's there just because you're riding the wave. So I think it filters out that also. Very good times for the team building part.
Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a team that is very, very different, right? We have people who are writing code, data, analyzing data, product managers, and then we have people who are lifting 50 kg sacks to put them into vehicles. And so I think this impacts people very, very differently in some ways and very, very similarly in other ways. I think people at different points in the spectrum, when they read a lot of news about companies laying off people, etc., there is obviously anxiety, and I think there's a lot of anxiety at times on people at the lower end of the economic spectrum, because if they were to lose their jobs, I mean it is a big problem, right? I mean we're very fortunate in this room that there's enough disposable income, etc. So one important thing that I think we've had to consistently do is reassure people of the fact that if you're building a good business, if you're building a business with solid economics, this is actually a good time. But that message is not something that automatically transcends to them, and so communication becomes very important. We're doing this across 30, 40 cities across the country, making sure I spend a lot of my time over the last few months actually traveling to each of these locations, because this is not something you can do with people on a Zoom call. Like you have to be there, you have to show people. This was the same thing during COVID.
And when you're there, is the feeling the same in whatever city you're in, or are there different areas of the country that have different attitudes?
I think for the most part it is a function of where in the economic ladder you are.
Okay.
But I think if you reassure people, if you actually focus them on the right things, the siege mentality is not necessarily a bad thing either, right? I mean I think it coalesces people. They think about fewer things, and because it's existential in some ways, I obviously you want to reassure people, but at the same time you also want them to understand that companies are built to make money, and that's important. Yeah. And I think that serves us well. And then obviously there's benefits around having access to more talent at this point in time. People are, as Dr. Yu was saying, I mean, people are, you're very clear who's in it for the long term and who's not. And there's no passengers at this point. So I think that those are all good things, but you have to be very conscious around making sure we communicate very, very clearly about the goals that we're going after.
Interesting. Anything to add, Mohit?
Absolutely. I think one of the key things, and I just pick an example of a team member who just came back and said that when we do our KPI reviews, this person said that one of my KPIs should be my resting heart rate, because what this downturn has done is that it has actually lifted my resting heart rate. And that is pretty cool, because yeah, I mean, the resting heart rate is inversely correlated with the conversion rate, or the, in some ways, the amount of money you're making per deal. So I think the bottom line here is that it's important to pay attention to health in these times, because this is the machine that's actually going to do the hard work, right?
Yeah.
And external demand is increasing, everything is amazing to build in this market, but then if the machine fails, everything fails.
Interesting. There was a question over here, and then we had one here, and then we've got a lady just behind. So just here, and then we'll bring the microphone around this side.
Hello, everyone. My question is to both Mr. Singh, Shailendra Singh ji, and all the panelists. Yeah, and I'm Navdeep. I'm from New Delhi. So this time, is it not the time to look and ensure ethical business practices and regulatory compliance by all the startups? And my second question is to Mr. Singh, how the VCs play a role in ensuring regulatory compliance by the startups? Because we have seen a lot of run-ups to the regulatory, they are landing in troubles, be it globally, be it Indian market also. So what is your take about it?
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Shailendra.
Yeah, I think, look, every ecosystem, whether it's startups or large stage companies, I think for us to have a chance to build enduring companies that will last for decades, there will have to be very good governance. What happens in a young company is, normally, if they're trying to blitz scale or they're trying to scale very fast, a lot of innovators, young founders tend to be amazing innovators. They don't always like doing things which are boring, like compliance. Like financial reporting. They think that's boring. They're like, hey, I'm an innovator. I'm going to build this magical world-changing product. Why do you want me to do the things that everybody knows how to do? And I think, so the way we think about this is a founder's journey is a journey from being a great innovator to eventually being a great leader, and then eventually being a leader of an enduring enterprise which has very high ethical governance standards, independent boards, internal and external auditors and so on. And that's a journey that founders have to go through. Now, transparently, some founders make that journey more willingly and more collaboratively with investors, and some don't. And I don't think that's unique to a region or it's unique to startups alone, but that's just the journey that everybody has to go through. Now, the good thing is public markets or late-stage investors, they really value well-governed companies. So companies that have good compliances or companies that do the right things are eventually rewarded for doing it. And I think when founders internalize that, we find that they actually themselves start to push to have great governance in their businesses. So at least our view is, look, this is a journey for all companies, us, all shareholders, the VC ecosystem, independent board members, folks who are in the industry who serve as independent board members in our companies, often are business leaders from the industry. Everybody has to work together to help groom founders from the great young innovator who's doing bold things to then eventually being a sustainable business leader with great governance in their company. So I think that's the journey they're on.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Sreeram, surely it's not boring, the light compliance.
Absolutely. No, this is a very interesting question that you asked. See, in the times of excess, right, you've seen a lot of people push the limit on a lot of stuff. So you've seen some of the advertisements that were done, right? So you can question about whether they were ethical or not ethical. And in the mad rush to grab market share, quite a lot of fundamentals went missing. And then you start getting creative to justify that marketing expenditure with some vanity metrics. And then you start going into another cycle. And I think it's times like this where it's very, very peaceful for companies who are thinking long-term and creating long-term value, because you're a lot more appreciated. And you don't have the pressure of that eccentric 21-year-old guy who just raised $100 million at $1 billion valuation, chasing you around the room with a kitchen knife.
Interesting. Dr. Naveen, anything to add?
Yeah, well, it's for decentralized space, it's kind of still wild, wild west. There are regulators all around the world who are trying to figure out how to do the regulations. There are some jurisdictions which have started, there are some which have not started. But in the end, I agree with Mr. Singh. I think the VCs and good funds, they really like if there is a structure, there's a good governance, and there's a regulated aspect, even if it's a company which is into blockchain or decentralized space, and the crypto is something which is involved with it as being the native token of the chain, which will govern the chain itself. So I think in the blockchain industry, the next 3 years are going to bring a lot of regulations.
Interesting. We've got 3 questions here, so I'm going to get you guys to pass the mic back. So 1, 2, and then 3.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Harish Ahuja. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called India Go Solar, and my question is directed to Nick. Nick, I think you are solving a big problem in terms of scaling up an impact company like us. So I'll first share my problem and then expect a solution from you. The problem is India Go Solar is a solar e-commerce marketplace which offers solar and electric vehicle solutions with financing. It has 2 service products, 2 pure products, Now services, tech and finance, I'm making money. It's both EBITDA and PAT positive. In product space, which is more purpose driven, which you answer. It is EBITDA positive but PAT negative or PAT neutral, I can say. So when you assess a company like us to take them to scale up, what is your metrics to assess the purpose? What exactly you see the attributes in that purpose metrics which will help us to get a scale and funding and a global scale?
Interesting. What are the metrics? We're going to come back to you. Let's just pass the mic back. So 1 question for Nick.
So for all of them, a funding environment is very important for a good startup ecosystem. And
tell us your name and where you're from.
My name is Shraddha. I am a sort of advisor that helps companies navigate new markets from a non-financial risk perspective. It's different in different nations. In the US, for example, we work with medical companies, etc. They're funded by universities, which are less strings attached. In China, it's by the government. In India, it's a mix of both. You've got private funding and government now setting up. So we've heard a lot from investors. I want to hear from the founders. What would you want changed in the funding environment in India, for example, in the UK? What are the things that funders, investors, VC funds, etc., need to do better to help you build successful startups?
Okay, we'll get a couple people to answer that one. And then behind.
Hi, Neeraj Malkoti. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Exclamation creates communication campaigns to communicate with your employees during turbulent times. That's our key focus area. The question I had was, during this, what 2 or 3 global or market events you think will trigger the end of these turbulent times? If you could come up with.
Interesting. All right, we're going to get our crystal ball out. Okay, first of all, Nick, why don't you answer the question that was directed to you?
Sure. I think, normally I'd be paid for this advice, but I'll give it to you for free. It's not a wish-washy answer, but I think there wouldn't necessarily be a set metric for what you're talking about. I think that's be something normally we would work with you on in determining kind of what success looks like to you, but also appreciating that it's an iterative process, and what we often do is test out lots of using various tools, and depending on whether you're a business-to-business proposition or whether you're focusing on consumers, what's really triggering with them, and then testing lots of things rather than just throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks, and then continuing to resource or building on what seems to work, and whether that's click-through or impact people visiting your site, sales, that was something we work individually with each of our customers on.
Do you have an example of something similar that you've come up with some metrics or some ways that have worked?
Well, a lot of our work takes place in digital, and obviously there are so many tools through social media, through websites, through some of the companies that these guys run that allow us to track that metric and to kind of follow people's journey throughout. But I think that's the important thing, is not just an initial metric, say an impact metric when you're getting people hitting your site, it's making sure that they follow through all the way down the line. And so it's kind of combining all those metrics. So important to sell, because after all, we're all here to make money and to sell things. So that's the big one, but also making sure that the measuring at the start keep us on, the cost of getting a customer is a very important one for us. Making sure that we're not overspending so that when you do make that eventual sale, it's actually been worth it at the end.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question was about what do you want different from funders? Now Mohit, I think you're raising at the moment, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we just concluded the round, and
Okay.
so what do we want from the market? I think, of course, I think it's, on the contrary, I feel that these are exceptional times to build. There should definitely be much more capital available because, I mean, yes, it's good to say like it's all end game and it's like everything is collapsing and it sounds fun. I think real disruption is going to happen only because companies will fail fast and they'll teach the next generation of new entrepreneurs what not to do and what to do really well. And I think one of the learnings, potentially, the first time when I started a company, it was about like, how do I raise the next round? Always, right? So, downturn, how do I raise the next round? Whom do I meet? This time it's about, how do I save more money, right?
All right, anything you'd like different from funders?
Yeah, I would say more in the crypto and the blockchain space. My personal experience is I think these funding, I mean the big funding guys, they should, that's my personal opinion, no offense, they should have actually capability to technically vet a project right. You go to Mr. Singh, he's a CEO, he will send it to his technical team. There are a few guys who just look through the deck and it doesn't do the justification. For example, we build an infra project, a layer 1 blockchain, which solves a very fundamental problem of data management. You could have stored the data on the blockchain until now for the sake of security, but you cannot run queries, you cannot do the management of data. And every application, all the founders are kind of related, and all these guys will be related with the IT field. Every application you make, it's a decentralized or a centralized application, you need a database. Every database in the world at the moment is centralized. 47% hacks happen. We built a first decentralized database, which graphic user interface is so simple that a person who uses it doesn't even need to know that in behind there is a blockchain. And we are finding a hard time by the funders or the VCs just to understand what we are doing. It's very easy. A wrestler like me understands it. So I expect that the funding guys are much more smarter than me, they understand it. But maybe I'm bad in pitching. I think it could be the both sides, but I think a lot of big VCs from US to everywhere else the CEO or the CTO don't really individually look into project, they give it to the team. And in the team there are individuals with different motives, or maybe his girlfriend is upset and he just looks in the deck and he says...
Shailendra, got to stand up for yourself. Do you understand blockchain?
I do understand that databases are terrific businesses, and if you can come up with a new database decentralized architecture, that would be pretty interesting to vet. Now, what we would do in such a situation is we have multiple people in the team who are deeply technical. We also have a community of over 150 CTOs from the portfolio, and normally what we'll do is we'll call on 5-6 of them to say, hey, can you do a call here, please? Or can you, help us vet? So I think most firms will, invoke, friendly folks who can help them vet if it's deeply technical. But we have several on our team, half a dozen actually. So let's chat offline.
Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing. I mean, it's not, we have not touched base with Sequoia yet. But the thing is, winning and losing, denying or approval, that's a part of the game we all have gone through. As a sportsman, you win and you lose. That's not. But if somebody tells you, oh, it's good what you're doing, but why somebody has not done it before? How do we know why? It's a fundamental thing. It's like, okay, if somebody has not done it before, I don't think you guys could do that. It's like, okay, but
Right.
So these things demotivate founders. It's okay, you do your due diligence and you can say, guys, we're not deploying any funds, which is okay.
Okay, all right. Nick.
I agree 100% with him, by the way. I think a lot of VCs are also, like I was saying earlier, they're looking for proxies. Has this been done before?
Yeah.
In another market and whatever. And I think the first principle question is not that. The first principle question should be, do I believe, is this a good solution? And it's great if it's not been done before. It's terrific. I found the first one. So I think, that would be the first principle way of thinking about it. So look, I have one piece of advice for you, which is, the good thing is you need only one believer in the world. There are thousands of VCs. So you might run into many who don't believe, but you'll also find the ones who do. And that's what you need. And the good thing is, I think most founders who are building good things, they're able to find their believers.
I think I found one.
Nick, did you want to
Yeah,
come
just
in?
quickly, I think what you're both saying is support beyond just getting money, I think is really important, and having that.
Network.
Yeah, I think,
ecosystem.
we just formed a partnership with a company called Founders Forum Group, who do similar to this. And they offer founders, right through their journey, support beyond just the money, because it's a turbulent journey for founders, especially young ones. And you'll need financial help at some point, but you also need legal help, recruiting help. You'll need compliance help. And so actually founders are looking for money that can support them beyond just that initial injection, so that the journey is smooth and probably as a result quicker.
Interesting. Okay, we're running out of time, so I can't take any more questions from the audience. I know that you've got your hand up, but I promise you're going to be able to ask them the question over lunch. But there was the question about searching through the crystal ball. What's going to happen that's going to turn this around? Does anybody want to have a go at that one?
Sure. See, I think we've seen these turbulent times come and go in the past, right? And
You've lived through a few building your
absolutely.
businesses.
So I think, as I said, this too shall pass.
Is there something you're looking for that might signal the end of the current turbulent time?
There are a lot of uncertainties right now, be it the war or be it the supply chain that's broken, and excess liquidity which still needs to be sucked out of the market. So I think these are pretty large problems. So it's difficult to predict what will trigger what, but the pain is still there.
Right.
I think, at least in my opinion, it's another 12 to 18 months of easing out this process that will start signaling the easing in the market.
Okay. Now, we've got, Shailendra, you can have 30 seconds, but I'm going to be strict.
I think there's a generational buying opportunity in tech right now, generational. Markets are very oversold. Yesterday, we saw a company called Coupa bought for 70% premium to their current trading price by a private equity firm. So I'm very bullish for whatever it's worth. I think we will see the markets turn faster than most people are expecting, because tech is still, the demand side of tech is still very strong. It's weakened a tad bit for recessionary reasons and all that, but if you look at an absolute basis, we have outstanding tech companies in public markets compounding and trading very cheaply. So my view is the market sentiment will turn a lot faster than most people think.
Okay, we've got less than a minute. I'm going to get a couple of you. What's the piece of advice you wish you had been told when you started this business? What's your advice for somebody who may be wanting to start a company right now?
So it's not necessarily what I wish, but it's what I think I would like to pass on to people. It's an incredible privilege to be able to take an idea that you care deeply and passionately about and to make it reality. I mean, it's very few times in the history, perhaps never in the history of mankind, have so many people had that privilege, because the ecosystems are there. Don't turn it into a competition on who raises more capital. Don't turn it into a competition, or don't worry so much about it. I think if you're building value that for your customers, people what we look at is people will continue to eat, people will continue to consume. If we create value, the money will come, right? And I think not focusing so much on that and focusing on building a good business actually liberates you a lot.
Interesting. All right, final word from you, Mohit. What advice would you give?
I think it'll probably be around focus on what's reversible and not what's irreversible. So irreversible are things like ethics, integrity, and all of these things have to sort of like be on spot, and you have to be there. But I think what's reversible is essentially the fact that you could make mistakes and learn and actually move fast. You could not do things really well, and you can learn fast if you have the time. So I think if you have the time, you can make mistakes, and reversible ones, I think probably that's the right framework.
All right, thank you. Last word?
Well, I think, like I said, tough times create strong men, and strong men create great companies. So make the best of this opportunity.
Okay, we've run out of time, and I know that the next panel, I can see them itching to get on. But let's give our panel and our venture capitalists a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. We'll be back in just a moment to discuss building robust healthcare platforms. Stay with us. Thank you.
You said that.